In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a powerful shift from feeling anxious and disempowered and just feeling like it's taking over your life to feeling more in control, really taking a power shift. Okay, so the first thing to acknowledge is that you can never get rid of anxiety. Anxiety is a part of our lives. It is something that we actually need. We need a level of fear, a level of alarm, a part of us that looks out for threats. It has helped our survival as a species. So if you are like me, have that tendency towards anxiety, your brain is very good at finding all the threats and the potential things that could go wrong in your life. This is actually a good thing because this is why we're the survivors. We were the ones that could spot the tiger in the woods before anyone else back in tribal times. But the trouble is nowadays, those immediate threats aren't there. In fact, we've all got most of us have a roof over our heads. We have all our immediate needs met. If you're watching this video, then you know that you've got your needs met. You have access to a computer, the internet. There's not a lot that is immediately threatening your survival, but still we have this anxiety. And so this is where it can start to feel certainly like it's less useful. But I like to challenge that and say it still has a use in our lives. At the end of the day, we've got a choice to make. Do we want to say this thing is useless and it's just annoying me and it's here to hold me back in my life? Or do we want to shift that perspective into something that actually gives you power? You can do that, and I'm going to show you exactly how. But the first thing to realize and accept is that you can't get rid of it. When you try to get rid of anxiety, it actually makes it worse. We start chasing our tails and we think that there's constantly something wrong with us for feeling it. So what happens is you might be just going about your life and then anxiety hits you and you start to feel this uneasy churning in your gut. I know how uncomfortable it feels. I know we don't want it there. Maybe the self-doubt voice starts to creep in. Maybe your perfectionism starts to exacerbate and you notice you're really starting to pick at yourself and noticing where you haven't got it perfect, or you start to notice your appearance or criticize what you're wearing or criticize your health habits and routine. You're not exercising enough. You're not eating enough of the perfect foods. And you start to get yourself into this spiral. Now, it's important to understand that the more we fight against that and tell ourselves there's something wrong and this is not normal, the bigger the anxiety gets. So to shift yourself into power, you have to start to move into a place where you accept this, where you accept that anxiety is here, it's a friend, and we're going to learn how to work with it. In my program, Anxiety Reset, this is why we go through an entire process that helps you become kind of friends with your anxiety, really changing your whole relationship to it. So in this video, I'm going to give you everything I can to help you see that as well. So next thing we have to do is start to change our relationship with it. Now, before I get into that, let's just acknowledge how much it can suck sometimes to feel anxiety, to feel in a state where you've had to click on this episode, you've had to watch this, listen in, because it's just so unbearable. You're looking for a way out. I know how it feels. I've been there before. In fact, I'm there frequently, not as frequently as I once was, because the more that you build your awareness and you change your relationship with anxiety, the less you actually experience it and the less intense it is. The more you move through those moments with grace, with ease, with a sense of power within you, knowing what's happening, knowing yourself, unlike ever before. But it can still come up and it's still not fun when it's there. So I do just want to put a little nod to that, knowing that even though anxiety is a part of our lives, and even though it will remain with you for your entire life, it doesn't always have to be something that throws you off your game, completely floors you, something that means you can't work, you can't follow your dreams, you can't maybe ask for more in your life. You know, this is the thing, this is the reason why I do this work. I want to see more women not listening to the doubt voice, not becoming trapped in this idea of perfectionism, never being enough, that actually stops us from asking for the pay rise, going for the business that we dream of, asking for a bigger love, asking for our needs to be met in romantic partnerships, going for things that we didn't think were possible for us before. You know, this is something that, gosh, years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I wouldn't have ever thought it was possible that I would be leading people through this, that I would be running a podcast. I used to be the listener of the podcast, not the host of one. And all of this has become possible because I learned how to manage that voice in my head. I learned how to manage that anxiety and dismiss it so that it didn't hold me back. And so in this series, I'll show you some more ways you can do that. But the first thing we need to do is start to shift away from telling ourselves that anxiety is bad and we need to get rid of it at all costs. No one wants to feel uncomfortable feelings. No one wants to feel the sense of anxiety in your gut, that sense of unease, that wariness. It's something that almost feels like your whole brain becomes hijacked. I know. You can't think clearly. You can't say what you want to say. You can't present yourself the way you would normally present yourself. And then later on, when you calm down, you think, oh my gosh, I was such an idiot. I shouldn't have said that. Or why didn't I think of this at that time? Or whatever it might be. I get it. No one wants to feel these uncomfortable feelings, but you can feel these uncomfortable feelings. You have the capability of feeling these uncomfortable feelings, and not just anxiety, sadness, grief, disappointment, loneliness, all of it, you have the capability of feeling. And the first thing we have to do is step into this knowing that you can feel it and you're going to be okay. Anxiety is not here to punish you. It's not here to curse you. You're not a weak person because you experience anxiety. I know even now, some moments when anxiety takes me over, I can feel some shame come in because I think, gosh, I'm ashamed that I have this wound that can be triggered. I'm ashamed that there's this part of me that isn't, it's almost like the dialogue becomes, it's not strong enough to kind of work around this. But when we get into that state, we are, not empowering ourselves. And the only way through is to bring more love, more guidance. And so when that happens, when I notice the shame voice starting to speak, immediately I shift into a more loving perspective. How can I bring more love to myself? And this is one way that anxiety is actually helping us become better versions of ourselves. It's a fuel that you can push off against. Anxiety will help you. In fact, it will force you to love yourself more, because it's so unbearable to stay in that state. It's so unbearable to speak to yourself that way, the way we've been conditioned to, telling yourself that you're not good enough, telling yourself you're not pretty enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not confident enough, that people don't like you and they're all judging you. It's so uncomfortable that you've had to find this. You've had to look for more, and you've had to grow as a person. And this is what I mean. It's that constant reminder. And we don't just suddenly grow and we're there. We don't just become suddenly loving to ourselves and that's it. It's a work in progress. You come back to it again and again. And that's why I have this program. We go through it for 90 days where we have consistent work showing up for yourself day after day. And then the master's membership too, that's where we continue the work going forward on a regular basis with those live events. Everyone comes and we remind you of what you've forgotten. We come back to love. But even a moment of anxiety for me is a reminder to come back to a more loving part of myself. When I'm not being loving, I notice it, I see it, and I see the value there. I see an opportunity there. I could tell myself I've failed. I could tell myself, who am I to help people with anxiety? I'm feeling anxiety right now. I could tell myself that, this whole day is written off, or maybe I'm not good enough. I could believe the words of that anxiety, or I could see it as an opportunity. I can change my relationship to it. Now, a lot of my clients say to me, I'm just so exhausted by it. It's just like it's never ending. And when is it going to get better? I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to serve me to tell you that one day you just get there and you're better and it never impacts you anymore. Anxiety is always going to be with you. When we can get our head around that, then we can start to make some progress, because it's not so much about anxiety being the issue. It's how you relate to it. It's what you're making that mean. When you start telling yourself, anxiety is going to be with me every day of my life, what am I going to do? You bring more anxiety into your life. You bring more reactivity into it and more energy into that fear. And you actually actively bring more of it into your life. What we can do is move into a place where we can feel anxiety and not react to it, where we can be okay with it being there, where we can notice it there and still get on with our day and still take steps towards your dreams and a better life for yourself. Because you know what? You don't have to believe that voice in your head that tells you you don't deserve it, that maybe this is all there is for you. The only thing stopping you from having more in your life are the thoughts that you think, what you're telling yourself, what you believe. This is a huge reason why I'm so passionate about this work, is because you are literally creating your life with your thoughts. There is no more valuable work in our lives than working on what we think and managing the fear, managing the doubt, building our confidence, seeing through perfectionism and how useless it is and how it just robs us of our pleasure, of our joy, of our presence and connection in our lives, the stuff we really want, the stuff that fills your heart. And it's all to do with how you think and what you tell yourself is possible for yourself. So I hope from this, you've gained some insight into how anxiety might not be something that you need to get rid of, and how if you can start to change your relationship to it, what you're making anxiety mean for you, you can really start to get some power. You can really start to make some progress in your life. It's not a punishment. It's something to bounce off, to remind you of what you're really worth, to bring you back to love in yourself, to make it so uncomfortable being in the not loving space, or it might even be staying in the uncomfortable relationship that's not right for you, or it might be staying in the job that's not right for you, or the house, or it might be that there are some things out of balance in your body. We're going to talk more about those, but your gut health, your hormones, that all need to be addressed and can be worked on so that you can start looking after yourself better and feel better and make the most of your life, this precious, precious life that you have. So once you start to change your relationship to anxiety, you really make progress and you start to liberate yourself. The question is always, how can we move away from being the victim to it all and move into a more powerful place? That's what I stand for. I love empowering people. I'm your cheerleader. I'm encouraging you. You can do this. Anyone can do this. So start today. I hope that was really helpful for you. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already so that you can stay up to date with all the latest. And I look forward to chatting to you soon.